Hi, welcome back to my next camera trap setup. I hope you're all keeping well. I'm back out after the foxes again in an old location that I used a few years ago. The last time I was here I managed to get a really nice image of a young badger on top of this lovely gnarly old tree stump. It's a really nice backdrop for an image, and I thought it was well worthwhile revisiting in the hope of getting another nice image. I'd had my trail camera set up on this spot for a couple of weeks, and recently I've been getting a few visits from a couple of young foxes. So I thought it was time to get the camera trap set up and see if I can get an image of them in this really nice backdrop. The last time I was here, when I got the image of the badger, I used a 3-light setup. But this time around I thought I would go with a 2-light setup just for starters, and if I thought it needed it, I could always add a 3rd light maybe at a later date. Camera settings wise, I went with a shutter speed of around 200th of a second, aperture at f10 to give a nice depth of focus, and an ISO around 400, which are pretty much my go-to settings. Or at least a good starting point anyway. I had the main flash set slightly below 1/8 power, fixed to the small tree just to the right of the tree stump, and I set up a fill flash just to the left of the camera, which I set at around 1/16 power. The PIR sensor was placed directly above the tree stump and I fitted it with a snoot in order to try and contain the detection zone in a more controlled area, and that was pretty much it. Everything was checked and double checked to make sure it was all firing, and trail camera was turned on, and everything was left to see what the next few nights would bring. Well, this is a sight you really don't want to be greeted with when you come back from the weekend to check your camera trap. I set this up two nights ago, and the reason I packed away the last camera trap setup was because the cattle were around, and I've just turned up now to come and check on my gear, and lo and behold, they've been in here at the weekend and they made a right mess of my equipment. There's the front element from the camera trap housing. The camera's still working. The dog is triggering everything. I think the flash is still working as well. But oh dear, what a mess. We've had quite a lot of rain last night, and I'm just hoping that it hasn't got in and caused any damage to the camera. I best get the box open and we'll take a look inside. Afraid this is just what I'd feared, to be honest. But the cattle that scuppered my last camera trap setup, I honestly thought they'd that they'd gone. I haven't seen them for a while, but they've obviously been back in over the weekend and just mangled up all my equipment. I just hope they haven't caused too much damage, but we'll have a look inside and see how it looks. Oh, there's quite a lot of water has got into the housing, which is not good. Well, the camera's still working. It's got pretty wet, but lots of pictures of the tree canopy from the cows, but that's all. No, that's been a complete failure, that has, I'm afraid. There you go. That's the hazards of camera trapping. You leave your stuff out in nature for any length of time, and there's always a danger something's going to go wrong. And this is just one of them instances. So hopefully I can get everything dried up. The camera seems to be working. I'll have to get everything dried up and see if there's any permanent damage to anything. The flash is on the floor, but it's still firing, so hopefully that hasn't received too much damage either. But anyway, that's the end of this setup. It was very brief. It's only been up for 3 nights, sorry, and I've got nothing to show for it except for a load of damaged equipment. So well, at least the flash is still working, so thankfully that hasn't been damaged. Well, it seems my sensor and my flash have been up out of reach of the cows, so thankfully there's 2 items which they haven't touched. Well, there we are, that's it. That's it from this very brief camera trap setup. It just goes to show that you don't want to be, I've said in previous videos, that you don't want to be putting out really expensive high-end equipment when you're camera trapping, because there's a prime example of what can happen. You know, you never know what's going to happen. I know some countries they have bears to contend with, which luckily we don't have here. But you only need a couple of cattle, or something curious, and they'll come in. They don't mean any harm, I'm sure, but they're just very curious, and they come and start nosing around your gear, and they're big animals and they can do an awful lot of damage to your equipment. So hopefully I'll get it home and dry it all up, and I'll keep your fingers crossed there's no permanent damage to any of my equipment. But that's all part and parcel of camera trapping, I'm afraid. So until next time, I'll leave it there. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Bye.